Good morning, everyone, and welcome to our Police Service Board meeting. I would like to call this meeting to order. Are there any pecuniary interests?
Right here.
None here.
Perfect. I would like to introduce to you today Sergeant Hogue. Did I say that right?
Yes.
Perfect. He's here to be our liaison today. Delegation? Nope. Circulation of prior meetings minutes. Has everybody had a chance to read them?
Mhm.
Could I have someone make a motion to approve? Lou, thank
I'll
you.
second it.
Second by Bev, all in favor? Perfect. Any business arising from the minutes? Lou,
Well, I guess that would be under new business, sorry.
okay. Perfect. Bev,
No,
awesome. Any council issues or correspondence? Do I do this or do you do this?
I can do that. So this is an email that we got,
Yeah.
from the OPP talking about criminal reference check revenues for municipalities. And they're gonna be reduced over the next few years mainly because the reference checks have been moved to an online platform. So we will see a reduced revenue. Just for your information, our budget this year is $3,500. So, I mean, you can roughly estimate how our revenues will be reduced by, $900 to $1,000 per year until it's gone, so. just
But I thought
information.
it wasn't effective until this is a notice that it's going to happen.
Correct, starting
in-
next year.
Oh, I thought it was 2025.
I think it's gonna be completely done. by
Yeah, there's a
2025.
percentage and then
Yeah.
the rest the following year, so. we
Now, if it's still for volunteers, is it still free?
I believe so, I don't,
Yes, okay. I'm just checking. Perfect. Okay, is that everything? Awesome. New business. Are you ready to give your report?
Sure,
Yay.
all right. So the July, August report for the Point Edward area, one of the things I'm gonna point out right off the hop is that when you look at the motor vehicle collision data, it's wrong.
Okay,
We've had an ongoing issue with our business interface program. It's not pulling the right stats, so one of the things I noticed right off the hop, it shows a fatal collision in July of 2023. That is not the case. We did have a fatal collision in Lambton County on the 402, but that was not in the Point Edward area, so. The rest of the stats are pretty close. You'll notice the trend that I noticed in the July year to date, our property damage collisions are up 225%. So I went in and looked at those collisions. A lot of those are going to be related to 402 traffic, construction at the bridge. They're rear end collisions on the 402 with queued traffic. So that's where that stat has gone up considerably. And they get associated to Point Edward because they're happening in the Point Edward section of the 402.
It's really good for you to note that.
Yeah, that number
that.
caught me
Yeah.
as being a significant increase, and I just wanted to be able to say where that was coming from. When you look at the July violent crimes numbers, you'll notice that year to date, our assaults are down 25%. In the village, obviously robberies are down 100% because we had one last year, none this year. When you look at our property crimes, year to date for July, our break and enters are down 40%. Theft overs are down 33%, so that would be any theft over $5,000. Our frauds have gone up about 100%. So last year to this date, we had 3. This year we've had 6. We've seen, and that's consistent right across the province, we're seeing a huge increase in online fraud type scams. Our mischiefs have gone up considerably, 75%. A lot of those are going to be smash and grabs from vehicles. Those, because it's not a residence, they don't get categorized as a break and enter, they get categorized as a mischief when there's damage to the vehicle. Drug crimes, there's nothing to note for July. We had no incidents. When you look at the criminal record checks, year to date, they are up slightly. Criminal record checks are up just over 8%. And then vulnerable sector checks are up just over 3%, year to date. When you look at our patrol hours for the month of July, you'll see 31.75 hours of cruiser patrol. 55.75 hours of marine patrol. 14 hours of bicycle patrol in the village and 30.5 hours of foot patrol in the village. We really put a focus, especially for the Point Edward officer, this summer to ensure that we were getting out both on bike and foot. And the Marine Patrol, both of our vessels are based out of the village, so.
That was the one that I found the most interesting because there was a lot of marine on for both months.
So we have, for the months of July and August, there was at least one boat on the water 7 days a week. Holiday weekends, we aimed for 2 vessels to be on the water.
Started. Going back to page 11 and at the clearance rate, violent crime. We saw year over year up at 22.5%, but yet property crime, we saw year over year down 0.2%.
Correct. So that's the number of cases that we're solving. So the violent crime, we've solved more, 22% more of those crimes. The property crimes have gone down by 0.2%, meaning that we're solving 0.2% less of those types of crimes. And a lot of those, again, property crimes are going to be your thefts from vehicles, those types of crimes where if we don't have video surveillance, witnesses, that type of thing, those are very difficult to solve.
Then on the other one, property damage was up 133%.
Here's that one.
Was that in August? Louis?
It was year over year. It's on page 13. Top one, incidences. It went from 6 to 14, 133.3%.
Yes, so that's motor vehicle collisions. So in the month of August, year to date, we have had 14 motor vehicle collisions that only involve property damage, so no injuries. Versus 6 last year.
Does this include the 402?
It does.
Okay, I just wanted to make
So-
sure that was clear.
Yep, you will see that the numbers for July were increased significantly. And then that continued into August. So the property damage collisions in July were up 225%. It then for the month of August year to date was 133. Yep. Yeah, so again, most of that contributed to collisions on the 402 due to the construction and the traffic backlogs that we've been seeing.
What's really important, to me, it's really important to distinguish because people are saying with speeding and that we're going to have accidents. These accidents are not on our municipal roads. For the most part, they're on the highways.
Yes, so when I went through and looked at the collisions over the July and August period, there were 2 that were in the village on village
Okay.
streets,
that's-
Village proper.
village proper.
Yeah.
And one of those was a vehicle that swerved and struck a parked car. So
Okay,
there wasn't even a second
Yeah.
moving vehicle involved.
yeah, just don't want anybody to, like someone to misuse that data
Right.
to interpret it.
Yep.
Differently. So that's great, thank you.
When you look at the August numbers for violent crime, again, for the month of August, they were down 50%. Last year, we had 2 assaults in the month of August. This year, we had 1. But year to date, August to August, we're down 30%. Again, no robberies reported this year. So when you look at violent crime, the end of August, year to date, we're down 23.1% in the village. Our property crimes, when you look at the property crimes, break and enters were down. We had 1 reported in August last year, none this year. Our theft over 5,000 have gone up. We had 2 reported this year versus 1 last year. Our theft under 5,000 have gone down significantly. We had 7 reported in August of 2022, only 2 reported in August of 2023.
Did you say theft under?
Theft under,
Okay,
we had 7 in August of 2022 and 2 in August of.
okay, I was just looking year to date, 29 and 24.
Right, yeah, so down
Still
17% year to date. Our frauds again up. Year to date 50%. And our mischiefs up year to date 28.6%.
Can I ask, did you want questions at the end? Or?
No, that's fine.
When you were talking about the fraud, and you said a lot of the phone fraud. So if I get taken as an individual and I live in Point Everett, it gets charged against having.
It
happened in
gets
Point Everett.
where the complainant.
Yeah, okay, that's, I mean, that's good to know.
Yes,
'Cause I mean, there's a lot of stuff happening. We were all getting the calls and,
yeah, especially during the pandemic.
Yeah.
There was a huge rise, and it seems like anytime people see a situation to take advantage of,
right,
there are people that will take advantage.
I just
of
didn't
it,
think
so.
about how it got charged back, so it's good to know.
Sergeant, your educated guess, how many people are not reporting fraud?
That's hard to say. I mean, there's a lot of factors that play into that. There's the embarrassment factor of people realizing. There's also the factor that people don't realize that they've been defrauded of money. I mean, I've investigated. Online scams where I am telling the person you're being taken advantage of, and they continue to send money. Because they believe in the end, what they've been promised is going to happen. And so it's very difficult to say
So you would
how
say
many of
a
those.
conservative number would be triple?
Yeah, it's possible. Yeah, it's very difficult for me to say, to put a number.
That's
to
fair.
that.
Okay.
Now, is there any way if someone has a fraud call coming through to them, should they call someone? Like, is it something that you could be proactive on? Because like someone called my mom and they said my son had been in a car accident and it scared her, but she realized it wasn't real. So, but you still think, oh my gosh, has he been in an accident? Is he okay? And they were specific, they knew names, they whatever. She said, I'm just gonna get him on the other phone, and they hung up. But should she have called someone at that time to report it, or is it too late, or is there someone that can?
So for us, there's no crime committed until money changes hands. However, there is the Canadian Anti-Fraud service that they could report it. They kind of track it countrywide. And they will give them resources and, educational material on what to do, what not to do, how to discover, when you may be being taken advantage of.
But does it help catch these people at all? Like, is there a?
It's very difficult. A lot of the online scams, I'll be honest, they're overseas. Do they get caught? Some of them do. There are international investigations that do occur. So it certainly helps them keep track of which ones are big and which ones maybe we need to focus some investigative time on. So it certainly doesn't help or doesn't hurt to report those to that center.
So, and what's the center called?
It's the Canadian Anti-Fraud Center.
So maybe we should
I can get you, if you
put
want,
that
I'll
on something
have-
that goes out to village people.
Newsletter, I
Yeah.
just wrote it down.
Perfect.
I can have our media officer send you some
Yeah.
links and some resources for that. Yep.
Just want to stay on that topic. In your educated experience, do our phone service providers do enough to prevent that?
It's very difficult because they change phone numbers so often. They use computer systems that randomly change the phone numbers. I mean, we've all had them and it looks like it's a local phone number that's calling you. That's all computer based, where the computer system is
So it means
making it
different towers.
appear and they will bounce it around, so it's very difficult. As fast as we were to take numbers down, they will just bring other numbers back up. So it's tough for the phone companies to combat.
On my phone, which is never used to happen. I can get a call and it'll say,
Suspected frauds.
yeah, probably scam or fraud.
Yeah, suspected scam.
So I don't answer the
Yep.
call. But my phone never used to tell me that, and now it tells me that.
Did you have to push something into it to
No,
make
I
that
never
say
did a
it?
thing. I'm with
Mine came
Rogers.
on automatically earlier
Yeah.
this year.
I'm with Rogers and it just started
With Rogers.
I don't know.
putting this detail in my call. Like, I show you something.
It happened all after when the people got arrested in India,
Okay,
about late last year.
Yeah.
CBC did a report where they went right to the building
Yeah.
because the Canadian government said, we don't know where it is. The CRTC didn't know where it was, and CBC went right to the building.
I do know in some countries, like when we went to Uganda, it's almost impossible to get a SIM card. You have to have a passport and everything because they don't want the stuff coming from there. So they make it very difficult for people to get a SIM card because then they don't have the crime coming from their country. So there are certain countries that are trying to crack down on it. But
Just one other thing I wanted to note that you mentioned too is, just because I think it's a really good stat. No drug crimes in July or August. Like,
No,
when you consider what's happening broadly, in the middle of summer, we had no drug crimes
so
or arrests anyway.
I would be
Reported.
correct.
Yeah,
I would be
Correct.
cautious
Yeah.
at saying no drug crimes.
Yeah.
versus no
well, as
drug
soon as I
thefts.
said that, I thought it could be a mischief or whatever, but
Right,
no stat for that. right now.
no, nobody that we arrested.
I think that's amazing though. It's good.
Yeah, again, in August, same thing, no drug arrests. Your criminal record checks year to date were almost on par. 14, so 0% change over year to date. And a slight increase in the vulnerable sector checks, 6.7%. Again, when we look at our patrol hours for the month of August, just over 41 hours of cruiser patrol, 39 hours of marine patrol, 14.75 of bike patrol, and 23.5 hours of foot patrol that month. When we look at our false alarms for July and August, you will see there that there are some repeat offenders. July was not bad. There were 3 and all from different addresses. August, we had 5. And of those 5, 3 of them were from that Kendall Street address, so.
Yeah.
We have spoken to them in the past to try and mitigate the number, but they said, like at one time they said, they have a lot of people coming and going and new staff and accidents happening as a result, but
actually, we're 152
okay.
and that's 142. So it wouldn't be
Well,
then
maybe
because
it's down
some-
here.
someone on the same side of the road as me.
I don't,
Right.
we'll figure out. who
Yeah,
it is.
figure out, but it just, what we've done in the past, we haven't charged anyone, but we have sent a letter and asked them to investigate or try and change the process or, do something to try and get that corrected.
I would say they've probably already done it too, because they all happened in about a week.
Oh, okay,
And then there were
yeah,
Then there were nothing
That was when the new
after
person
12th of
started.
July,
okay,
Sorry. 9th of August was the
Yeah.
last one of
Okay.
that address, so.
all right, we'll just keep an
We'll
eye.
do some follow-up.
When we look at community safety media relations, our officers were very busy right across the county. The focus for traffic safety remains high with the OPP. What we call our big 4 offenses that we're looking for. So those are impaired, aggressive, distracted driving and seatbelt use. So those are the focus of a lot of our traffic initiatives. In July, the media officer released 45 media releases for the county, 6 of which were focused on Point Edward. And 37 media releases in the month of August, none of which were focused on Point Edward. We are doing a number of events across the community, or across the county. We have one media officer that covers all of Lambton County, including Point Edward. So we did put some stuff in here, some of the events that we've been involved in right across the county. There's some social media posts from different events, as well as a post with Constable Vitali, who is our media officer, and his service dog that was out for foot patrol in the village one day in July. We did conduct a fraud presentation at the IBEW Union Hall in Point Edward on July 14th. As well as we participated in Camp Day for Tim Hortons right across the county. Our school resource officers, as much as school wasn't in session, obviously in July and August, they still try to stay involved in the communities. You'll notice there was an incident in Point Edward of 3 males aged 14, 15, and 16 that were setting off fireworks underneath the Blue Water Bridge. So those youths were located, they were warned, and then our school resource officers were involved to speak to those youth as well as their parents to try and prevent that. When you look at our crime statistics, we investigated 1 sudden death during this period in the village of Point Edward and 1 criminal harassment occurrence in the village of Point Edward. Traffic continued to, traffic enforcement, I should say, continued. Officers were routinely monitoring various roadways in the village, as well as the 402. I know there was a concern raised about the traffic and the commercial vehicles utilizing the local lane on the 402. So we did create a focus patrol for our officers so that there were officers, not only Point Edward officers, but Lambton County officers that were focusing some enforcement time on the 402. We also did some joint enforcement initiatives with the Ministry of Transportation to try and get the message across that the commercial vehicles utilizing the Blue Water Bridge are not to be utilizing the local lane. And a number of charges have been laid against commercial drivers for using that right-hand lane. Whether that be improper use of a border approach lane or interfering with traffic, because there were, I know personally, I was there several days. There were instances where trucks were blocking the local lane completely. They would, typically what I saw was they would get off at Airport or Modeland. They would weave their way through the city and they would try and jump back on at Christina. And then they would try and get into the truck lane, but because it's backed up well beyond that point, they would end up diagonally across the local lane and completely shut it down for, 15-20 minutes at a time. So we did try and conduct some enforcement, and that enforcement is continuing. That directed patrol goes right to the end of the construction period for the Blue Water Bridge.
And if someone has an issue, they call Star OPP. If someone's blocking the lane and they see it, that's the
Give
number
us a
that they
call
should be
and then we can
contacting.
have units dispatched and hopefully deal with that situation.
Perfect.
Yeah. And unless there's any other questions,
I only have one, or bridge traffic, we've addressed that. We were talking before, now you weren't here, so I don't know if this has been, brought up to you, but loud vehicles going through the village that are making a lot of noise, so it's difficult for people to sit out in their yards and whatever with the noise going by, and what they were doing was, pulling people over, and I just want to make sure that we're still focusing on that, as well as, speeding throughout the village. Those are two ongoing concerns that we seem to have a lot of issues with. Speeding, especially St. Clair Street, Michigan Ave. And a couple of other streets, which will be listed. And the loud vehicles, just making sure people have the proper mufflers on and they're not making noise pollution.
Yep, no, I will, I'll certainly take that back. I know St. Clair Street has been an issue, I think since I've been at Land, going on 4 years. So, and I have personally sat there, and it's difficult because of the design of the street and the way there's a curve. I can tell you that I'm a radar instructor for the OPP, when we train our officers, a vehicle going around a curve visually adds about 10 kilometers an hour to your estimation of that speed. So a lot of times what we're finding, and we will utilize technology in our speed spy, that type of thing, when we get some of these complaints, because a lot of times what we get is a perceived speeding issue, but when we pull the data off of a speed spy that's been deployed for 3 or 4 days, are vehicles speeding? By the letter of the law, yes, they are, because the speed limit's 50. But what we find is the bulk of those speeding vehicles are, between 50 and maybe 60. There's very few that get up into what I would say would be the enforcement range, where we would stop and take enforcement action against those vehicles. Have I written tickets on St. Clair? Absolutely.
And
But they're far and few between. People look fast, but necessarily aren't as fast as what you think they're going.
And
So,
have we had the the spy cameras up recently?
we have not in Point Edward, no.
Um,
No, they've been, we have
We have
one,
one here now,
okay.
do you?
just
Okay.
waiting to be put out.
And does it track?
It's not, it's in my office right now, so
Okay.
it's not doing a whole lot of good where it is, but
Okay. We
It's
do,
ready to be
yeah,
put
and
out.
those. We have one for the county, so it's moved all over the county whenever we get traffic complaints. And like I say, a lot of times, don't get me wrong, there are speeders. But a lot of times what we find is the majority of the speeders are within a threshold that we probably wouldn't take enforcement action against them. So,
If we can just ensure that we're still watching for
Yep,
that, as well
absolutely.
as the loud vehicles,
Yep, I
because
will.
they're constant
I'll put an
complaints.
email out to the DL for the county and just remind the officers that those are focuses that the village would like to see.
One other thing that I would like to say, we have Manly's, which is right across the road. We've had a lot of issues with, people on our property. We've had we've been dealing with Travis Parsons. He's been great. But we've had someone who broke into one of our vehicles that unfortunately wasn't locked, because the lock was broken, didn't know it. Anyway, they took keys, then they came back the following week with other keys that we didn't know they had, and they went through a bunch of our C-cans, and then they've been in our bush, they've been beside our building, they've been breaking the fence between us and the storage sheds beside us. We found things with feces in them, and it's just becoming, it's literally like every day we pull up our cameras and there's been 3 more people on our property the night before. If there's anything, this area over here, there seems to be a lot of stuff. We found stolen bikes, and it's almost daily. So I don't know if I'd ask Travis, is there any way to just kind of up a patrol at nighttime, maybe put 2 more drive in our parking lot and turn around? And the people beside us said that there had been tents in behind them. I just think if we can on this street do a couple of extra drive-bys, that would be helpful.
Now, the tents, would they be on private property or public?
They were on
property?
private property. I talked to Travis at the time. That's a
Okay.
while back. They were located
And they're gone now.
by this park,
Okay.
behind this parking lot. And he said the property owner needed to complain.
100%. So if
But-
it's private property, we cannot
Yeah,
remove them unless
because-
we get a complaint from the property owner.
I mean, what we felt was at that, through that discussion was they were back there in the tent. And then they're roaming around to get stuff to help them with their tent living. But he said it was up to the property owner to be the person to complain.
And we've given them video surveillance of the people that have been at our place, so they have the video of them. It's just one of those.
Yeah, I know we've dealt with the Ministry of Transportation as well around the off ramps of the 402 where we were getting some homeless people that were living. And hopefully they've been moved on. But yeah, it's difficult. A lot of times we will engage the county homelessness committee as well. Because they have resources and people that will go out. Unfortunately, a lot of the people in Lambton County that are homeless. Choose to be homeless for a number of varying reasons, whether it's, you know, they don't like the solutions that are being offered. A lot of times, unfortunately, it goes back to drug dependencies. And that the shelters and resources being offered will not allow them to utilize those drugs. So they choose to be homeless in order to continue with the use of those drugs. So that's very difficult to deal with. And I mean, that's a society issue. That's not a.
Ours haven't really been homeless people per se. They've been people who actually are coming to our place to drop stolen stuff.
Right.
And then they come back the next day and pick it up.
Or, right, stash it. And
So I don't know why they have our number, but anyway,
what's the address?
152 Kendall.
I'll send something out.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything else?
Are we on new business?
Yes,
I just thought would mention, while Chris is here, that St. Clair Street reconstruction is not gonna happen in September as we were talking about.
Okay.
They're doing some soil sampling that's going to take 3 weeks. So it puts it too late to start on phase one, you know, to get anything in the season. So at some point, we can show you the plan, if you'd like to see it, but a lot of it is about redesign of the street that is to narrow down the street. There's some changes in pedestrian and bike area. Curbing and things like that, to all addressing speed and functionality, and include, you know, adding trees and boulevards down like Sarnia Produce area and that area that doesn't have
Yep.
the nice boulevard. So all of that will happen. So they will not start till the spring, and it will go down to Michigan Ave, like in phases. So we'll be going over that with the OPP, so you'll know which sections are out of control, taken out of service, or how we're dealing with covering those periods of time.
Okay.
You
Yep.
know, for pedestrians, because it is a complete, like, down to the earth rebuild.
that'll shut down speeding.
Hmm.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, but it'll increase something else,
yeah,
the teeter totter effect.
but the design looks really nice, and ultimately, at the police station, there'll be a crosswalk on the opposite corner, across Michigan Ave, from like the ice cream galore side to the other side.
That'll be good. Perfect. New business?
I need a motion to.
Oh, can I have a motion to accept the,
And I'll second it.
thank you. All in favor? The report, that's the word I was looking for.
And the other thing, I just forgot, there's a letter to residents is being prepared. And it will go out to all the residents on St. Clair Street, so your office will get one, and will, you know, just advising people of what's happening.
Perfect. Any other new business? Okay, financial statements. So everybody had a chance to look at the financial statements?
I didn't have any questions.
No questions? Lou, do you have any questions on the financial statements? Perfect. Can I get a motion to approve? Bev, second, Lou, all in favor? Carried. Okay, next meeting date?
Would be
Sorry.
October. No, this is September. It'd be
November
November.
16th
November
is
16th.
the regularly scheduled date.
Okay. Nine AM? Okay, is that everything then? Can I have a motion to adjourn?
Move.
Perfect.
Thank you.
Now, there is a report that we need to fill in, and I'm hoping that we can do that now if we've got 10 minutes. I didn't think that the world needed to listen to us do the report. Are we still on?
We're still on.
Whatever, if you want to listen to us do a report, you can, but it's gonna be boring, so. There, how's that?
Well, it's still on. See the red light.